Hey guys, what's up? TheOneChristo here, bringing you another one of my deck guides. Today we're doing things in a slightly different format. I've been playing a lot more Gwent recently and actually trying to, win games and improve my MMR. So I actually have had less time to put videos together for you guys. I wanted to get this video out there specifically, this SK Patricidal Fury deck. Honestly, it's nothing special. It's nothing super creative, but for myself, I've had a ton of success with it. So I'm currently at 2522 MMR, and I wanted to put it out there just based specifically on that I've seen a bunch of success, and I wanted to share that success with all of you lovely followers. So I actually haven't played this deck on stream, which means I do not have any gameplay video to follow this up with. You can always pop by either my Discord or my Twitch stream and ask me any questions you may have. Again, it plays pretty straightforward. I'll try and walk you through the majority of the deck to make it a little bit clearer as to kind of how to sequence some of these cards, but it's not brain surgery, it's Skilliga. That being said, let's jump into the cards and take a look. There's a few different variants of this deck. Before I get into it, just highlight that, some people are playing Morkvarg. I know Shinmiri has a really great list out there that plays Mork and cuts a little bit down here, the Greatsword, the Berserker. I played a list earlier that instead of Herkia had Skjordahl in it, not Skjordahl, sorry. It had... I'm completely blanking on his name now. 7 provisions. Skjall as another 10 to be able to use with Hjalmar. But the more I play this deck, the more I realize that you don't need the great swords for Harold as much. So let's start talking about the deck and go through it. If you guys did play this or something similar, have any different suggestions, please throw them down in the comments below. I'm always very curious how to refine this deck. So what you're seeing here, Patricidal Fury, obviously, the beauty of this is it activates Bloodthirst on your cards like Champion's Charge. We've got Crystal Skull loaded up here. The main reason I decided to go with Skull is actually the long ships. So this plus the long ship will give you Veil on it, which will help it from being locked. It also puts it at 8 instead of 9. I don't think many people are dropping Vanilla Geralt on turn 1 to answer your boat, but it prevents it from happening. So I do like the addition of the 4 points instead of 5. Blood Eagle, Brainless tutor card goes in all decks. Keep in mind, you can absolutely grab him with Vabjorn if you are missing the Blood Eagle. Your Bloodthirst 3 often will happen as well, so that's another great opportunity to go get your Harold, your Hemdall, and whatnot without necessarily killing a 2, but using Bloodthirst to go get it. Hemdall here, again, obvious inclusion. You're probably going to look at using Hemdall after you use the Patricidal Fury to get those 3 Sirens out of the way, because Arnjolf brings down the 3 Sirens on the opposite side of the board. Totem, I find this deck lacks a little bit in proactive plays. Something like Totem is a phenomenal way to start round 2, for example, if you want to bleed. It plays for 8 points and then on 1 turn flips to 12. So it's just a nice proactive play I really like having in the deck. Hjalmar, obviously Hjalmar comes out here with the change a couple patches ago to the Greatsword. These guys hang out in the graveyard at 10 points, and that means Hjalmar comes out and just removes whatever you need on the board. So it's a pretty nice board clear. Can deal with a Hamadryad, can deal with other things, even a Goliath if you wanted, or oftentimes, because you will see a ton of these mirror matchups, you will probably be removing a Greatsword with it. Skjordahl, I often mulligan Skjordahl in round 1 and in round 2. The 3 or 6 point play in round 1 just feels kind of bad. And oftentimes in round 1, you're going to be wanting to spend cards to win that round. So Skjordahl is something you can absolutely mulligan. In talking about mulligans and making sure you have the right cards in your hand, this deck is obviously very draw dependent. No Neuromancy or anything. Blood Eagle is your only tutor. In round 1, for example, you will never play Harold. You just won't. So mulliganing him in round 1, if you have access to Blood Eagle, is actually not a terrible play. You will oftentimes have a way to get him out in round 3 with Blood Eagle. So keep that in mind as an option to when you're taking your mulligans. I did mention while talking about Hjalmar, you'll sometimes be facing that mirror matchup and you'll be removing Greatswords, things like that. What tech you might see some Turgvi in these decks for that mirror matchup, because giving an enemy Rupture, which damages them by their base power, instantly removes an Arnjolf or greatsword. I say instantly, it takes a turn to do it, but nonetheless, rarely is skill going to run a purify, so it can do a lot of damage as well if you want to tech that in. Unfortunately, it typically fits around that 10 provision slot, where you're gonna be trying to squeeze in Turg V or Mork Varg. You've obviously got Hjalmar in the deck already, so a lot to think about there. We've got Vabjorn, who is your tutor to play raid cards. You've got your raid cards, you've got Blood Eagle. Raiding Fleet is a nice thinning card as well to go get a boat. Obviously, Champion's Charge, Bloodthirst 3 destroys a unit. Your leader ability gives you that, so you absolutely remove a card without any worries. You've also got War of Clans that I actually like to pull the warrior from the graveyard. So this does play for a decent amount of tempo. If you go grab it with Vabjorn, it gets you 2 more points, but dealing damage by 2, grabbing, let's say, a warrior to do 3 damage and get a 3 body on board provides 5 removal and a 3 body. You can also grab the Invader for in round 3, 7 points. So you're actually playing a 9-point play from the War of Clans as well. So lots of options there. You can even use War of Clans to set up a Blood Eagle, for example. Herkia, you know, she's seeing a comeback often around more and more. The extra pings are nice. She is a great way to establish some board presence, and the pings will allow the greatswords to grow, things like that. So always fun to have a little bit of additional damage to get the bleeding on the board. Sorry, the bloodthirst on the board with the damaged units. I mentioned Raiding Fleet before. It's just a nice tutor to get your boat out. Plays for 4 bleeding plus the boat. If you can do that early in the round with the 1 boat, we have the Longship. Doing the pings, I like that a lot. It forces a response, or your opponent is easily taking 5-6 damage, making that a 10-point boat, which feels really good. While we're talking about boat, I know a lot of people are starting to play more of the self-harm package, so you'll actually see the other Longship. You're going to see the light Longship, which damages an enemy unit by 1, and then you're going to see the protectors that come out as well for 4 provisions and get boosted regularly. So you can play the berserkers next to them, you can play the greatswords next to them, you can play the other Longships. I just haven't found my groove with that deck, with that package. I found it a little bit more awkward to play and to organize, so I kind of went this direction instead. The Longships are a little bit more brainless. You just kind of drop them on board and they either force an answer or they do some work, so that's a great option to have. Obviously the 2 great swords, so you're probably looking to have those in the graveyard by round 3. You know, people oftentimes will grab one with Harold. It's going to depend on the scenario for me. I think the great swords can play for 10 points. When you play Harold in round 3 and you drop a great sword, he pings for 1, so you automatically bump it to 5. But if that's just going to go get rebuked, if you don't have something like Herkia on board, like a Berserker on board, or something that deals damage, it might just get answered. And in that case, if it's going to get answered, I oftentimes will go grab the Raider. Comes out 6 for 5 provisions plus 2 damage. Feels really good. Harder to remove at 6 as well. So I oftentimes will go for the Raider and looking to just have the 1 greatsword in the graveyard for Hjalmar. Often what you'll also see when you're facing somebody who plays Heatwave, since you don't run a scenario, your Heatwave targets are kind of meh. Unless you're looking at maybe Arnulf or Hemdall, but even then, those are just point removals. What you may see is your greatsword actually get heat waved. It prevents that carryover of it ending up in the graveyard and coming back and doing some damage. Berserkers, again, no brainers. They come down 5 for 5. They boost to 6 after 2 pings, so they do some nice work. If you have one established as well, it helps buff your greatsword just a little bit more. We talked about the Longships, we talked about the Raiders. Gutting Slash, you will oftentimes be able to have Bloodthirst 2, which means they do 6 damage instead of 4, especially if a Longship out, a Herkia out, things like that. These can do some serious work. 6 for 4 is nice removal. 4 for 4 can still be good to remove certain units on your opponent's side of the board, so don't underestimate those. They can also be pulled with Vabjorn. You probably wouldn't do it unless you are desperate for one, or you drew all your other raid cards thus far. The other reason people tend to run that package I was talking about before, that self-harm package, is mainly because things like Gutting Slash get 6 value almost all the time because you're using your ship to constantly ping your opponent's board and create that bloodthirst. We've got the Invader. I mean, pretty simple, right? Buffs up to 7 in round 3, so you've got your 7 for 4 with Veil. Nice proactive play if you just need to dump something on the board as well. And then you've got your Warriors, really more so to come back from the graveyard than anything else. 3 for 4 with 3 bleeding though, honestly, not the end of the world. It still gets you decent points for the provisions. That being said, I think, you know, some of the main strength of this deck is simply the fact that every card just punches above its provisions almost all the time. So, you just have to get that value, get that tempo out there. If you are on blue coin, you can typically keep your lead and win that round. If you are on red coin, a lot of times, depending on the path you want to take, you can punish somebody who's playing a little bit slow tempo wise. You've got lots of options at the end of the game. You want a Champion's Charge, a Gourd, a Glusty, whatever else pops out, Osrill every now and again. You've got answers for that. You can answer wide as well with something like Hemdall. So you've got variety in here. It matches up pretty well against just about every deck. Has had a lot of success on my side of the fence, and hopefully you will see some success with this as well. If you guys have any questions, if you guys need any help with it, like I said, pop into the Discord. You can see it below. Go ahead and reach out to me on Twitch, Twitter, whatever the case may be. I'm gonna keep trying to, as I continue to try hard this season. The season that means nothing, of course, is when I would decide to play more games and try a little bit harder to rank up. I'll continue to drop the decks I'm having success with, and hopefully you guys will enjoy them. If you have any questions, let me know. Throw it in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, all of that jazz, and I will see you all out there.
Oh, what a lovely tea party.